Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Ground Pass. I am not in the basement anymore. We're back in LA. Even there are more hours between us, Nick.
Yes, which I hadn't realised until we started recording. Yeah, if I'd known that I wasn't 11 a.m. Eastern time for you, I probably would have suggested a different time.
No.
Very kind of you to speak to me this early in the morning, Anastasia. So, that's cool. Also, I never thought you'd referred to New York as a basement.
That could go so many different ways, but no. New York is not a basement. New York is a very beautiful city. I just happened to record in a basement. Hello, guys. Welcome. So much has happened this week. It's been one of the most, there's been tennis happening. There's been news happening. There's been waiting. We've been waiting for so long to find out who the top 8 of the ATP Finals is. And we are going to talk about it all. If you have been following Ground Pass on social media, which I am usually the one behind the social media, so if you see anything, it's usually just me typing, you can probably know how this podcast is going to go. But welcome, everyone. Sit back and relax. We are going to review the WTA Finals and the win of Elena Rybakina. We have to talk about that. And we are also going to preview the ATP Finals. We finally have the top 8. A few matches have already happened as we are recording. So we're going to talk about all of that and also, of course, all of the news that has been happening around tennis. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Nick, we have a bunch of new questions.
Well, yeah, because you asked for them, and I saw when you told me you were going to put this out, the first thing I saw was we're going to get flooded.
Yeah, we have a lot of new questions, but this one, and it's so hard when guys, you're so awesome. Thank you so much for sending us questions, and it really gets really hard to choose, like, oh my goodness, which one do we pick? We will answer them all, I promise you. That's what we did for our birthday episode. We just went through all of them and we answered them. But this one I thought was relevant to our very first topic, so I thought we might as well go with it. And this is from, I think I'm saying it right, this is from Gabo on X, and said, okay, which city do you think should host the WTA Finals next? I'm thinking a good mix of tennis and casual fans may be easier to stay around Asia in relation to the last swing. These top players deserve the biggest cheers, especially at the end of their season. Great question, because technically, as we talked about in the last episode, the Riyadh contract, the WTA Finals in Riyadh, they actually only have one more year. So technically they could renew for more time in Riyadh, or they can move to another city. And we've kind of talked about this a bit before, but I think, Nick, do you want to reiterate where you think the WTA Finals should go next if they were to move?
Yeah, I don't know if I said where they should go. I've got a few places I'd say, so a couple of years ago when Riyadh was announced, I did a poll on my social media and basically just asked people, okay, we're going to do a competition, knockout, here's some cities, where do we think the WTA Finals should be? And I got suggestions in as a crowdsourced thing. I said, well, just reply to this with some ideas, and I'll just put them in a tournament type structure, and we'll see what comes out on top. And the winner, which I liked, was Prague. I like the idea of going to Prague for it. And part of it is because I'm Eurocentric bias, but also I think there's so many Czech players on the WTA Tour who are so good, and they do not have an event bigger than a 250. And I think that is ridiculous, because I think the fans would turn out for it. It would be a great event, and I think it would reflect the standing that Czechia has in women's tennis and men's tennis as well, to have an event as significant as that hosted in Czechia, if you can't give them 1,000. I'll throw a couple of other ideas that I liked from that time. Someone suggested going to somewhere like Rio. WTA doesn't really have a proper tournament based in South America. I'd love that to be where it was anchored. That would be really, really cool. I mean, I'm British. I would love the idea of the WTA Finals eventually coming to the O2 Arena, so I don't have to fly to another country to eventually go see it. So again, being very, very selfish here. And then there's part of it is right now in the current WTA world, so many of the players are American. It would be top players are American, half the field of WTA Finals are American. would it not be cool to go back to the US and almost maybe bring it back to where the WTA Finals started, which was Madison Square Garden? Like, pull back there. Garden Cup was a great event, so great atmosphere. Why not have it there? So that's probably the main ideas I would have. But if I was going to pick one based on what would be popular, it would be Prague. But somewhere where, like, it would be rooted in sort of tennis fandom. I do get what people are saying about, calendar logic, having it near Asia, so it's not so much of a faff on the players, or using it as an opportunity to, like, have a big event in a part of the world that doesn't already have a big event. So Europe has 2, the US has 1, Australia has 1, but then you're kind of running out of choices there. So that's kind of where I would go with that for the moment. So that's currently where I'm leaning for, like, favorites for the WTA Finals.
Awesome. Yeah, those are all good choices. I actually landed on one place specifically, and this is where our love for F1 combines with our love for tennis. I think the WTA Finals should next go to Mexico City. That's where it should go.
That was actually an option on my poll. I think that one actually went quite far. I can't remember if it was quarters or semis, but that was quite a popular choice, Mexico City, for quite a lot of people.
Yeah, because I think it hits on a number of things you just talked about. One, I think the Latin American audience and tennis, Central America, Latin America, they love tennis and they really do support women's tennis. Every time the tennis goes down, even when Cancun was sort of, a tennis tournament in a hurricane force wind storm, there were still people there supporting it. And so I think they really love the tennis. They really support the women playing tennis there. So I definitely know it would draw crowds. And I actually also blame this sort of like very specific city and why I picked that on Morgan Riddle, who is Taylor Fritz's girlfriend. She was invited to the Mexico Grand Prix and she created a vlog. And I've never been to Mexico City before, but she takes you around the city and then she, of course, goes to the Grand Prix and everything. I'll link the video below. It's such a beautiful city. So I just think with the city, the culture, everyone loving tennis, that's a really great location. And then the final thing is the thing you hit on the head where half the field is now American. It's kind of a middle ground. Getting to Mexico City from the US is not hard. And I think, Gabo in their question, I don't know if it's a he or she, but in their question stated, the season ends in Asia. Should we kind of stay in the Asian swing area? But what you find out is that most players actually took 2 weeks off. So I think they have time to come back to sort of North America area to have the finals here. So I don't know. I am leaning very specifically to Mexico City. And I think, Mexico, hey, if Riyadh's contract is up next year, I really think you guys should put a bid in. I don't know who to talk to in Mexico City, but I have a good feeling that might be a really, really great location for it.
Yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun. Mexico City, I think it would be a fun vibe if you went there, especially sort of around Halloween time, which is when the WTA Finals is, because there'd be a lot of sort of the dead kind of thing going on. I think the one thing I would say, as you were saying, it wouldn't be that hard for American fans to come to the Mexico. I'm not entirely sure how easy it would be for them to get back.
Moving on.
You might want to cut that.
Moving on to the next question. I'm probably going to leave that in, Nick. Okay.
Bustin' with the Boys is here to let you know that every college football Saturday, FanDuel is dropping profit boosts that can turn wins into bigger wins.
Sounds like we should rename Saturday Booster Day.
Nice.
21 plus and present in select states. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Okay, let us get into the WTA Finals review. What a tournament. Before we jump in, before we talk about winners, losers, crowds, no crowds, whatever, just in general, what were your feelings this year, I think, for the WTA Finals? Like just a quick kind of maybe one sentence, this is what I thought of the WTA Finals.
Right, okay. Are you talking about the vibe of the event or the tennis?
The tennis.
Okay, one sentence thoughts are, gosh, I'm like, why use one word when five will do? So I would say in one sentence, it would be the tennis was really good and got better as it went on. Like, it was a slower start than expected. But once the tournament got going, we saw these great matchups that we were excited for play out. And by the time we got to the semi-finals, it really started to peak.
I have to agree with you because, I would say, if I was to just sort of condense that, it was like slow start, big finish. It definitely started slow, but boy, oh boy, did those balls want to get back in the can. In that final match, they were like, please put us back. We don't want to participate in this match.
They were utterly destroyed by both players in that final within minutes.
Yeah, it was totally, it was so good. But, let's get into it, talk about everything and each player. And, let's start, I think, with the two players that were sort of eliminated right away for two separate reasons, I think, and we're going to start with the singles first before we jump into the doubles. Jasmine Paolini and Madison Keys. I think, unfortunately, at this tournament, Jasmine Paolini was just sick, right? So we didn't really get a true sense maybe of what she could do. Do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. And with Madison Keys, I think she was just gone for so long, and I just feel like I really didn't expect anything from her this tournament, and we didn't really get anything from her this tournament. I think she was still sort of in the recovery from injury mode. And you know what? This is actually a question for you, because did you finally get to see her new serve? And what are your thoughts?
No, because Madison pulled out before her third match.
Yeah.
So just for context, I had to miss kind of the very beginning of the tournament for one reason or another. So I was looking forward to seeing this serve finally that we've been talking about. And then an hour before the match with Rybakina, it was like, oh no, it's Alexandrova playing. It was like, well, I guess we'll see if this serve is still a thing in Australia.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing. I would, just for research purposes, you should totally just go back and like maybe watch a game or two of the replays just to see what it is, because I've heard differing reasonings from people. I don't think we've heard directly from Madison why she's serving this way. I've heard the part where it's like, it's just sort of to shorten the swing, creates more power. I've heard maybe it's probably to prevent injury. And I think the only reason I keep harping on this is Madison Keys had such a beautiful serve. She had such a strong, beautiful serve. So the reasoning, why change it? It's like, why change something that isn't broken is tough to understand. So we'll see how she shows up in Australia. But yeah, so those were the two players that were eliminated early.
I would definitely listen to her next podcast that she does, because she's got one with Jen Brady and a couple of others. I reckon she'll talk about it on there when they next do an episode.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you're so right. I'm going to bookmark that. Totally should listen to the next episode of, it's called The Players Box is their podcast. So I'll definitely check that one out. And then I would say, okay, so then the next group of players who did not make the semis, so that would be Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff. Iga Swiatek and Coco Gauff are the other two players that didn't make the semifinals. And again, I think, for two separate reasons. With Coco Gauff, I think she's in this sort of like rebuilding phase, trying to rebuild her game. And yes, she's a defending champion. And you know what, Nick? This is actually a very interesting conversation I want to have with you, because Coco Gauff, throughout sort of this Asian swing end of the year, when she's been asked in press, how are you taking this end of the year? And she's multiple times, she said, it's just practice, just, I'm taking it easy and no pressure. And I remember watching her last match and just seeing how devastated and upset she was from that performance and from that loss. And what do you think? Do athletes just tell themselves that, or tell the press that, to kind of take the pressure off themselves. And when I say that, I mean, they basically just say, oh, no, I'm not taking it seriously. It's just practice. But clearly, they're taking it very seriously.
I don't see how they can't take it seriously. This is their job, and they are super competitive people. Like,
yeah.
I think what Coco means is that she's not taking it as seriously as she would be if she was trying to win a Grand Slam. Or, I think it's like levels of seriousness to it. It's not like, oh, it's just practice, I don't care. But like, she's still trying to learn something, she's still trying to gain something. And when she's out on court, if she thinks she can win, she can go for it. And again, I only watched one of Coco's matches, and that was the one with Aryna. And I thought Coco was like standing up to Aryna pretty well, at least after the first set and a bit.
Yeah.
First set or so was up in that tiebreak they had. Like, it was a close set they played. And I think, if Coco was like getting beat down by Aryna and things weren't working, I don't think she would have been super, super upset. But I think when she knew she was in the match, if she's in the match, then there's just something about her that's going, no, I can win this. And I thought she looked okay, actually. I thought that, again, it was one of those pretty standard sort of, yes, Aryna won in straight sets, but Coco made it a competitive straight sets match, a bit like Madrid earlier this year.
Yeah.
That they had, or that Australian Open semi they had last year. It looked pretty normal for one of their rivalries. So watch out, Aryna, if Coco starts trying it, I guess.
Exactly. And we will totally actually come back to that when we kind of wrap up and look forward to next year, because, man, the WTA next year is going to be so, so good. I think it's going to be so exciting. But, okay, and then we had Iga go out as well. And again, the same sort of thing where you see how much passion these athletes have for the sport. They're not satisfied with just doing okay or not getting all the way to the end. And, so who did Iga play? Oh, Amanda Anisimova was her last match, right? And Amanda seems to have figured out this matchup that she now has with Iga Swiatek, even though, and we'll get to Amanda later, she did not really light up as much as I thought she would at this tournament. But for Iga, I think just like Coco, maybe in a different way, but just like Coco, she is in a rebuilding phase as well. She has a new coach, she's learning new methods, and I don't think it's been as talked about as Coco, where it's so specific with the forehand and the serve and everything. But I think Iga is still going through that phase as well. I think his name is James Hansen. I think he's the editor in chief of The Athletic. And he wrote something on Twitter. If I find it, I'll post it in the video or link it below. And I thought it was so astute where, he was sort of like, look, we're going to get performances like this or results like this from Iga as she's rebuilding her game. Like, it's not just going to be sort of like a straight line graph up in an upward direction, because nothing is in life really. So it was very interesting. And what I do want to talk to you, Nick, about, I don't know if you saw this, but it was one of those moments where I thought, the internet just doesn't get sarcasm or nuance or anything. But Iga was interviewed at the end of her match, and she said something along the lines like, I guess I'm not winning all these big titles or more matches and stuff because I did so well and I was winning so much last year.
Yes, the karma
thing. It is so clear that is sarcasm and just sort of like a fun statement.
Yeah, but
too many people took that seriously.
Because she says it in such a flat, dry way. Like, there's no kind of eye roll or wink about it. It's kind of flat as it is, very dry, and a lot of people don't get dry. Like, you have to take a step back and think, hang on, are you being serious? And then when you're kind of talking about something like that people take us seriously, like a sport, or like talking about your job, unless there's other people you work with, it's going to be a different sort of reactions. I didn't necessarily take it as sarcasm. I just took it as, oh well, like, I don't like that I lost, but it's not going to kill me. Like, she's she's processing the loss well. And I think she should, because the Elena match aside, the Amanda match, she was still in it right to the end. Like, she had love 30 at 2, Amanda serving, with 2 great returns. Like, if she capitalised on that, she could have broken back and have been 4-3 in the deciding set, and it would have been a very different match at that point. But I think Iga didn't break back, Amanda held, and then I think it was just the match went from there. Iga was in this, but she didn't win it. She went, well, I was kind of in the mix, and positives to take for next year in that, like, she can still compete at the top. Would she like to win? Yes. Is she going to start winning again? Probably. And to your point about the rebuilding phase, I think it's not talked about because it's old news. Like, we were talking about what Infosat was going to do to Iga Swiatek's game this time last year. Coco Gauff's rebuilding started in August this year. So realistically, I guess it's down to patience. Like, surely it shouldn't take a year, right? That seems to be the vibe. It's like, is it rebuilding? Shouldn't the project be kind of where it should be now? And I just say that, look, I don't know whether it's rebuilding the game or not. Maybe we're pretty close to what Iga Swiatek needs to do and she needs to settle into it. But again, I'm going to keep going. Like, countless top players throughout history have slightly less successful years. And by the way, a slightly less successful year for Iga is still 3 titles. So, including a Grand Slam, like, how many off years did Sharapova or Enan or, dare I say, Venus and Serena have? Like, where they didn't win as much and then came roaring back. So, not saying that's Iga, but I don't necessarily think that you should panic yet. 2 years maybe, but not 1. That's kind of where I'm at. She's still up there. She's still competitive. And I think if some things had gone slightly differently for her this tournament, she'd have made the semi-finals.
Yeah, totally. No, I agree. I don't know. I just thought, and maybe because I love dry humor.
Yeah.
Like, I love when people stick to the bit. Like, she was so serious. She didn't wink. She didn't like, ha ha ha. No, she just like, And I was like, you should get that. But anyway, it was too smart. Iga was being too smart. Okay, next 2 that were eliminated after that were Amanda Anisimova and Jessica Pegula. They were eliminated in the semifinal round. And, I think coming into this, I remember when, we did our episode where we previewed the WTA Finals. And when we were posting, the promo for the episode in the social, I asked people in the chats and stuff. And I was like, hey, who do you think is the favorite to win the WTA Finals? And I think I remember texting you this. The majority of people replying to us was Amanda Anisimova. Everyone was like, Amanda Anisimova. And it made sense. She had the most time off. She seemed relaxed and and rested. She was the first one to get to Riyadh to sort of adjust to the conditions. She was practicing so early. So I expected Amanda Anisimova to come out of the gates like just hot. Kind of like we said in the beginning, the WTA Finals just started so flat. You were like, wait, what happened, Amanda? Like, where is the Amanda that we thought was going to take over and win this title? And she just never felt comfortable or settled, really, this tournament.
I think she took a while to settle. I think that's probably the key here, because you're right. She loses to Rybakina in the first match. She drops a set to Keys, who wasn't well, and then has to come back from a set down. And then I think we started seeing more. We actually saw the Amanda we might be expected to see against her 2, on paper, toughest challenges, which is Iga and Aryna.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a good match with Iga. And I thought the Aryna match was really good. Like, I watched it with a friend that doesn't, I'm getting into tennis. And we were gripped by the Aryna Amanda match. Although he really struggled to pronounce her last name. Anisimova's last name. This is my Hong Kong friend, and could not get his tongue round like those first couple of syllables. So we had to settle on Amanda. But yeah, so Anisimova, I thought like it was such a good match. They were really taking it on, and I thought Amanda did really, really well in that match, and it was really like a couple of games towards the end of the sets that she lost, where she kind of went off the boil, that kind of sealed it. And that's kind of what you get with Amanda sometimes, is that sort of up and downness. And we'll come to Aryna in a minute, but that is the challenge that Aryna sets, that you have to be on your game right to the end to beat her. And some days Amanda can do it and some days she can't. And I don't think that's reflective on the tournament. I just think she got a while to get going. But once she got going, she looked like the player that we thought could win it. Because like I was on the, like, you know, she ticked a lot of the boxes. The last 2 years, the Beijing champions won the WTA Finals. She won Beijing. You know, she's had the best, I thought she had the best kind of compromise of rest and kind of match prep. But clearly that wasn't the case, because guess what, guys? Aryna Sabalenka is really, really good. And we'll get to her in a minute. But that's where I led with it, was just Aryna was just slightly better on the day. Had Amanda watched that match, who knows what would have happened in that final. But that's kind of where I'm at, is that, yeah, she started slow, finished strong, looked like the player we looked at. I want to ask you this, because I think this is a fun question. Which was your... So we've had 3 Aryna-Amanda matches the second half of the year. I don't think we've had any more than that.
No.
So the rest of it in 2025. I think we've only had 3 in 2025. Somebody tell us if I'm forgetting one from before Wimbledon. But certainly Wimbledon onwards, we've had 3, which is the Wimbledon semi-final, the US Open final, and this WTA Finals semi-final. Which is your favourite of those 3?
You know what? And it might be so funny to people, but the Wimbledon one is my favorite.
Why?
Because it was so, well, I think people might expect like maybe one of the later ones, like maybe a US Open final or something like that. But I think the Wimbledon one was such a shock and surprise to us, to Aryna Sabalenka. It was just like, what, you know, I think we were all Aryna Sabalenka, where it was like, what is happening? Why am I not winning? What is going on? Like, just watching every facial expression of Aryna Sabalenka in that Wimbledon match was just too much. If you haven't watched that match, guys, go back, because the whole thing, because, you know, and we keep saying, we will talk about Aryna Sabalenka, but she has this aura of, I am taller, I am stronger, I will win. And when she isn't, she has this sort of like, what is going on? Why are you winning and I am not winning? And I think that Wimbledon match was, I think that was their first meeting in 2025. I cannot remember an earlier one. And it was such a surprise and shock. And I think it was sort of almost maybe the birth of the current Amanda Anisimova as we know her, as this sort of like top player who gets to the finals of Grand Slams. So that was my favorite.
Yeah, it's mine too. Like, similar reasons to you, like that sort of big breakout moment at the end of it, that real sense of like Sabalenka being frustrated. I mean, I do think the WTA Finals clash was probably like, it was different in terms of it felt like 2 heavyweights going toe to toe and then being more treating each other as equals. And there was that kind of vibe to it. But in terms of raw, like, determination and more of a scrap and more entertainment, the Wimbledon one for me is the one that kind of rises above a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, because I think I'm going to be excited for every Amanda Aryna match we're going to have ever now. Like, yeah, that's just a thing now we're going to get.
Yeah. Okay, the next person is also someone who I think goes so under the radar, especially with a specific matchup, and her name is Jessica Pegula. Jessica Pegula has had such an interesting year, I think, because you could think, wow, Jessica Pegula, she's almost like, you know what? She's almost like the Taylor Fritz of the WTA. She is Mrs. Consistent. She's always there. She's always in the top 4. You can kind of rely on her to get to the second week of things. But at the same time, she lost first round of Wimbledon after winning a title the week before. So I think she's had a very interesting year, but she got to the end, and I think she performed so well in the North American Summer Swing, also through Asia as well. And I think it was just the small margins a little bit in this WTA Finals for her. I think of all the players, she's one of the ones I think could probably just go home and say, you know what, I did pretty well, I did my best, and I'm just going to sort of build for next year. At least that's what I think. Let me know what you think. But also, I hope from now on, when you see Aryna Sabalenka playing Jessica Pegula, you stop whatever you're doing, people, and you sit down and watch that match. I think it is one of the most underrated rivalries. I've said it now for a few tournaments. It's just so good. They met at the US Open, and then it was in Wuhan. And then now they play incredible matches. Just fun, great tennis matches. But yeah, what did you think about Jessica Pegula this tournament?
I was very pleased to see her performing well because I wasn't sure where she was going to be at this tournament because she has been a bit up and down this year, and I'm glad that this tournament was an up for her. So she beats Coco, which is a rivalry that's quite close between them. She beat Jasmine, but everyone beat Jasmine, and and then just pushed Aryna, which she's now doing. She pushed her at the US. She beat her in Wuhan in what probably was one of the best matches of the year, looking back on it. And yeah, I think that she's finally figured out how to redirect Aryna's power better than she was, because she's good at that anyway. But I think she's figured something out in that rivalry to really get into the mix, and I think it's really, really exciting. And yeah, I am one of those people who need to respect Jessica Pegula more, because I think I put a post up on social media about, again, we'll probably come back to this, why Aryna Sabalenka is like the common denominator in the best rivalries in women's tennis right now. And I listed her rivalry with Swiatek and Gauff and Rybakina and Anastasia, and I missed Pegula. And I got a lot of heat in the replies, quite rightly, for that. So, yeah, you have to put Sabalenka Pegula probably on that list now. I think they're going to be, even their two-setters are good now. And it has been for a couple of years. So, yeah, definitely Pegula kind of proving that she's still there. She's still in the mix. I'd say she's closer to the top than Taylor Fritz is. Then on the other side, if you want to end that comparison there, I think she'll come out these WTA finals feeling pretty good. I mean, she was in there with Rybakina. Let's be honest, in that semi-final, she was in it for most of that match. Yeah, she's a contender still for as long as her age will allow her. And that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, no, totally.
Should we actually talk about
now? We're going to I mean, it's time. It is time to talk about Aryna Sabalenka.
How are we going to end up, she didn't even win the tournament. How on earth are we spending so much of this podcast talking about Aryna Sabalenka? But I think you've spent a lot of your time on social media talking about Aryna Sabalenka.
Yes, I did. And we will talk about two separate things about that, because I liked what you posted. And maybe we start there, because mine's going to be a little bit of a rant, so I'll leave it till the end. But I love what you posted about Aryna Sabalenka being the common denominator in all of these rivalries and the top of the game of the WTA. And she was the runner-up in this tournament. And I want you to kind of expand on that a little bit, because I think it is such a great point to make that she's always there, at least consistently now. It wasn't always like this, but in the last sort of year, 2 years, she's just this consistent force in the WTA.
Yes, she is. And that's why she's the world number one, because unlike Iga, Coco, Amanda didn't show up for the first half of the year. And then now she is consistently in the mix. Elena has only just got going. Jess is up and down throughout the year. Coco's been up and down throughout the year. And Iga kind of got going one big, settled. So with Aryna, she's in the mix, and she's you have to beat Aryna to win a tournament. So it's not just the consistency, but it's the fact that she brings out the best in her rivals, because you have to play your best to have a chance. Look at this. Let's take Wimbledon as an example, where Aryna reached the semi-finals. She had amazing matches for different reasons, with Emma Raducanu, with Marie Boskova. It was Elise Mertens. And then she played Laura Siegemund in that was a match. And what the common denominator in all those matches, I'm using that phrase again, is all those players brought their best versions of their respective games, because they knew they were playing Aryna Sabalenka, and they pushed her. They couldn't beat her, but they pushed her. And that's what Aryna forces you to do. So when she's coming up against her rivals, which, when I made that list, these are legitimately the best players in the game right now. They're the names that will first come to mind as the elite of women's tennis. And there's more room, I didn't mention Jess. I probably should have. I didn't mention Madison. I probably should have. Watch out for Mira Andreeva. She's beaten Aryna a couple of times now. Let's see what happens with her. Vicky and Boko's not played her yet. I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
But like these specific players, they are the best. And when you're bringing out the best in your opponent and the level the opponent can bring is so good, and the level Aryna brings is so good, that just makes for really great tennis. And so Aryna plus the best in the world is entertaining combination. And that was more the point I was going to make. And that's what makes her the best in the world right now. And that's what she forces, that's what she produces. And, when this is where we can start bringing credit to Elena Rybakina, who won the tournament. And we'll talk more about her story in a moment. But in terms of the match and the final, Elena Rybakina brought her best from start to finish. And that's why Aryna lost. I watched that match going, nobody's playing badly here. Aryna's being challenged, and she doesn't like being challenged, and that's why she's reacting to this. But Elena Rybakina played the most perfect tennis I've probably ever seen her play. And Aryna was putting up quite a fight to it. And that was a really good tennis match, even though it was straight sets. So that is the core of my point, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was just, I saw your post and I was like, oh, that's so right. That's what has been so exciting, I think, about this year, because it's nice when there's a dominant player in a sport. We get it. It's nice to see that sort of excellence in sport. But I think what makes it even better is when you have challengers to that person. And when those challengers, meet them at that level and can create some beautiful battles. And that's what we've got so far with Aryna Sabalenka and all these other players. And a lot of the times, like you said, she does come out on top. But it's nice seeing sometimes these players, Elena Rybakina, pretty much all of them have also then gotten the win over her. And that just creates a great back and forth. And can you solve for that issue? And, it would be interesting to see how she goes back in the off season to sort of try and figure out what she does. Because I think at the end of this tournament, just looking at Aryna Sabalenka, I think where she's at right now is she is the best player in the world. She's number one. Year-end finalist, number one, is the top player in the WTA. But I think the thing that we almost find funny watching her deal with, where she's just sort of like, I am big, I am strong, why am I not winning? She almost has to get over that a bit and figure out how she can realize, I guess, that there are going to be people who will figure her out and will be able to beat her. And how does she respond to that?
Also, the bigger I am stronger, I will win. There's going to be, I think there are players now that she can't say that about. She definitely can't say that about Amanda Anisimova, because they are pretty much equal in stature and in strength. And you can't say that about Elena Rybakina, because Elena is taller and can hit through Aryna as well. And, the kind of more... It doesn't look like brute strength. It's just this natural pace that comes off Elena's racket that has always bothered Aryna. That's why they always play amazing matches. They have for the last sort of 2-3 years. And I don't think Aryna's surprised when it's Elena. I would hope not. Anyway, by this point in their careers. If she's going out going, oh yeah, I'm going to overwhelm Elena Rybakina, that's happened literally once. And every single other time she's played her is a battle. I think Aryna's smarter than that. I don't think that's her attitude, but it's still really frustrating to her when she loses. And we saw that at the WTA Finals, where she really had to work through her emotions with her coaching team straight away, straight after losing that match. I think you were watching a different match at that point, but she literally sat in the coaching box and had to literally complain about everything and get upset, and kind of reminded me of when she lost in Australia, when she lost at Roland Garros, when she lost Wimbledon, that sort of... Aryna wears her heart on her sleeve and is sulky when she loses, because she doesn't like losing. And like, how can you expect, and like, I think it's like, okay, cool. I don't think she's a sore loser though, because she's not salty about it once she's processed it. But it's just that in the heat of the moment, when it hurts, she lets the rest of the world know that she's hurting. And so I think that's also something we're going to when we think about the image that Aryna Sabalenka kind of produces.
Yeah. And I guess that will bring me then to my last sort of my mini rant and why I was sort of like complaining on the internet, or at least I temporarily became an Aryna Sabalenka stan for a week. And this kind of goes for everything, guys. And, you know, this is just, I don't think, I completely understand that you can be a fan of a player and not like another player. And that is totally fine. Do you, boo? Like, whatever you'd like to do. What I do not like is, and this really comes only with Aryna Sabalenka, I've not really seen it. But, well, no, actually, I've seen this sort of thing with Iga Swiatek as well, where, you know, some people think, actually, then you also see it with Elena Rybakina, where people take a personality trait and they sort of, you know, use that as some sort of attack on a player. They'll say Elena Rybakina is too cold, like she doesn't, you know, cheer enough, you know, and you're like, well, that's just her personality. Like, she doesn't emote too much. Why do we want her to be something different than she's not? And then this came from Aryna Sabalenka's grunt. Aryna Sabalenka has been grunting since I've known her. I've been watching her for years and years and years. She grunts. Is it louder than most? Yes. Has she done it any differently? No. It's the same. It's been the same for years and years and years. And for some reason, this tournament, and I get it, but a lot of fans who don't like Aryna Sabalenka and wanted either Amanda Anisimova to win or Coco Gauff to win or Jessica Pegula to win, whoever she was playing, would use that as this attack. And I just feel like, how would you feel as a human if someone took a personality trait of yours that you had no control of, you could not change, the way you looked, your hair, the way you sounded, and then they use that to attack you? And that's what I was saying. Like, are you guys listening to what you're saying? And if you turn that around on yourself, does that sound okay? And I just want us to be better fans of sport, is all I'm saying. We need to be better fans of sport. Love the sport, love the game, love your favorite player, beautiful posters for them and all that stuff. That doesn't mean you then need to personally attack their opponent or anyone else and be cruel and mean online. And I know I'm sort of like praying for a perfect world that doesn't exist. But I just don't like seeing that on our feed. And by the way, this is just basically a warning. If you come on Ground Pass and you post any of that, you are blocked. I am a block happy person. I do not give second chances. You are gone. But it is just not the way we should be as fans. It's not what we want to promote as Ground Pass. And I would just want people to think about what they're posting and what they're saying before they do it. I know I'm asking too much, but maybe just give it a try for a second. End of rant.
Just to be clear, are you saying that it's not okay to not like something about a player?
No, it's okay. I mean, you can not like anything about a player. You can, I feel like there are things about players I do not like. There are players I don't like. I then don't personally attack them or say mean things about them. We can't like everything. I don't like tomatoes. I actually do not like raw tomatoes. I really don't. Maybe it's a texture thing. I don't know. But you can't like everything. But I'm not going to sort of go on a crusade of hating tomatoes and calling tomatoes names. I just don't think it creates a great atmosphere of enjoying a sport. And, I just feel like every time I almost wanted to like literally delete every single social media app every time I was watching an Aryna Sabalenka match. I was like, why is it just was inundated with these people. And I'm just like, this is no fun. This is no fun at all. So I don't know.
Do you
Food for
think
thought, people.
that goes up when that player's winning?
Yes. Yes, it really does. And I get it. It's like, they're sort of like, why are you winning? I'm like, I don't know. They play well. They're really good tennis players. Keep it to the tennis, people. But again, let's be better fans. Let's be better humans. We're all humans and we all live on the same planet. And here's the thing, just if you want to just come down to sort of like the technicalities of things, because also what I hear a lot from people who make those comments online, they're like, oh, it's a hindrance. It's a hindrance. I'm like, Aryna Sabalenka has never once been called for hindrance. The other player's not calling for it. The opponent's the umpire's not calling for it. So excuse me, but why are you online on your phone calling for it? You actually don't have any say in the match, but okay. Okie doke. Anyway, on to the winner of this tournament, which I called. People, I will remind you, I remember saying, watch Elena Rybakina be the last one in and the one right there at the end. And she took that seriously. She really took that seriously. And Elena Rybakina is your WTA End of Year Finals winner, champion. And it's just remarkable. I remember posting online, I was like, if you watched her run up to get qualified, I mean, it was some of the most impressive tennis I've seen her play in a very, very long time. So I did for sure have a feeling about it. My only question was, well, she hasn't come against the top players of the world. Like I hadn't seen her play against Aryna. I hadn't seen her play against Amanda Anisimova. So I was sort of like, her tennis looks excellent. I just haven't seen her against the top players. And her tennis stood up to all the top players. She went undefeated. She did not lose a match in this round robin format. So yeah, I mean, you didn't watch most of her matches until the later stages of the tournament. But what did you think of Elena Rybakina this year in final?
Oh, she was great. She was absolutely brilliant this tournament. No kind of issues with how she was performing or anything like that. Like she was excellent, like particularly in the final, but also in the way she compares herself to come back against Pegula in the semis, the way she compares herself to come against Swiatek in the round robin. Like she was there. She was in the mix. And like he was like, yeah, but she's not played a top player. The only top player she played was Jasmine Paolini, who was arguably kind of out of gas when they played. So I'm similar to you. Like she was good. I had a sneaking suspicion if she got out the group, she was going to win the tournament. She was going to make the semis. She was going to make the tournament. She was going to win the tournament. But the thing is, that group she was in was so competitive that there was no guarantee about it. The key question is, how will she hold up against Iga and Amanda? Because if she comes out of that group against Iga and Amanda, she's winning the tournament. But yeah, that was why I was probably less kind of confident than you were about the result. But I wasn't surprised when she got going, because this has been brewing for a while. And I felt like it, like since Elena kind of had that really, really good match with Iga at the French, and then just falling short a few times like the North American hard court swing, and then again in the Asian swing, and then it just, and finally winning the title back in Strasbourg, and then again in Ningbo, and getting things moving in Tokyo. Like there was a sense that Elena's kind of stringing it all together again, which she hasn't for a while. And so I was expecting a title at some point in the year. I thought it was going to be like one of the 1000s in Asia, but it's no surprise to me that she won this time. Like it's been coming. She started to play like the Elena we recognize again, which makes things a whole lot more interesting for the tour, because it wasn't interesting before. But now you've got 5 players to be hyped about going into a tournament, potentially winning it.
Yeah.
Minimum. Let alone 3 or 4 as it was before. So yeah, rolling Australia, you're going to have 6 legit title contenders there minimum.
Yeah. And I think that's what, and I think that's what's really exciting about this whole end of year finals is that at least I left it thinking, wow, these matchups, these players, the sort of excitement they have created coming into next year in Australia, knock on wood, hopefully everyone's healthy and firing. But if they all are on top form, we could have one of the most exciting Australian Opens in a very, 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 very long time. And I don't want to jinx it or anything, but it's been really exciting watching these players. Before we move on to the ATP really, really quickly, we do want to talk about the doubles. I don't know about you, but coming into this, I was like, Siniakova Townsend, like it was their title to lose. Like they are, I think you could also say probably Paulini Arani because they're also a great doubles team. But I think the moment I at least realized that Paulini was sick, I kind of took them out of the running because it just didn't seem like she had anything to give. But we got a surprise winner, my girl, Kudermetova.
MVP, by the way, this tournament. MVP, like she was amazing. Like I watched the semi-final against Siniakova Townsend where, it went to a deciding tiebreak and Kudermetova and Mertens won it and then won the tournament against Babos and Stefani. And every single time I was watching, it was Kudermetova was just on fire. I'm not going to say she won that event single-handed because Mertens was there and doing her thing as well. But Kudermetova was dialed in from the baseline or the net, like... Yeah, she was the star of this tournament, absolutely for sure. So what can I say, Anastasia? Like, how dare you forget about Veronika Kudermetova?
And see, maybe that's the thing, because every time I sort of focus on her, she lets me down. And then every time I forget about her, she just comes up with a title. So maybe I should just sort of not talk about her. And Australian Open, here we come. Okay? You can do it, Kudermetova. You got it. This will probably be something we talk about like later on in one of our sort of roundup episodes later on. But I've already started hearing rumblings of doubles teams shifting and new partnerships and things like that. It's always a bummer, I think, for me, because I think the way these sort of doubles teams get more notoriety is when they stick together and win together and, they can kind of build that sort of legacy together. But I've already heard of some switches and stuff. So we'll probably talk about that in a later episode. But great to see Kudermetova and Mertens win a title. They also won Wimbledon this year. And it really was a great WTA Finals in the end. I think just talking really quickly about the venue, like the crowds were bigger. It definitely wasn't, what it probably could be in a European city or a Mexico or anything. I saw a lot of posts. I think what I really loved was watching the players interact with the young fans. Like I always love things like that. And the WTA was posting a lot of that. So we'll see how this relationship of the WTA finals keeps going with Riyadh. If they leave after next year, if they stay longer. But yeah, we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah.
Okay. It is time to move on to the ATP and all their shenanigans.
Can I just say, you say their shenanigans. Let's cut to the chase here. It's one player's shenanigans.
It is really. One player's shenanigans.
One player's shenanigans. Yeah, one player's shenanigans, right? Because we wouldn't have been in this position if someone had made up their mind sooner.
No, we wouldn't. And I'm going to do a little bit of like told you so, Nick, because I remember last episode, I was like, Novak Djokovic is not playing end of year finals. And here we are. Novak Djokovic is not playing the end of year finals. So for everyone who hasn't been paying attention, the ATP Finals starts today. It started today. The first two day matches have already happened. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But usually what happens with these things is, there's a whole roll up. We saw it with the WTA. We talked about it. They do the photo, they do the thing. And this year they did the photo with the ATP finalists, the top 6, because we only had 6 players as of 2 days ago. We only knew the top 6 players. So this photo shows up and it's only 6 players and we're waiting for the other 2 names. In the running for those 2 spots were Felix Auger-Aliassime, who, as we talked about last episode, had already gotten into the 8th spot, But because the points from the tournaments that just ended this week also counted towards the end of year finals qualifications, Lorenzo Musetti, who had entered into the Athens tournament, had the chance of overtaking Felix Auger-Aliassime if he won the tournament, which is a big ask, but he was there and he was trying. While all of this is happening, by the way, Novak Djokovic has already qualified for the ATP Finals, and he is entered into Athens. If you have been paying attention to Novak Djokovic this year, it's really great what he's doing. He's still playing. He's 38 years old, but he has not been able to string together 2 good weeks. He himself has said this. So I'm not making it up. It's like he said it himself. He's talked about it. And, he's talked about maybe next year focusing more on the 1-week tournaments and things like that. It might be better for his body, et cetera, et cetera. But, he'll do really well. He'll get through the first week of a Grand Slam and he'll lose to one of the other top players, usually Carlos Alcaraz, in the second week of the tournament. And you could just see that his stamina could not take him through those 2 weeks. So the moment he entered into Athens, which was the week before, Athens ended yesterday. So we're recording on Sunday. Athens ended on Saturday. And I was like, well, if Novak Djokovic is getting to the finals in an attempt to win this tournament, which, by the way, is owned by his family, there is no way he's going to the year-end finals. He can't, there's no stamina. He can't do that. So I just thought, why are we being strung along in this sort of farce where, we don't know if he's going, we don't know, and I'm putting that in quotations, if he's going. So now Lorenzo Musetti has to go to Athens to try and win the tournament. He did very well to get to the finals and play against Novak, while FAA is just sort of like sitting in Turin. Thankfully for him, so he pulled out of the tournament that he wanted to try and go to. But I think in all of this, Felix Auger-Aliassime is the winner because he chose wisely to not go to a tournament and he just went to Turin to start prepping. And what we've been left with is Novak Djokovic pulls out last minute, basically right at the net, because what it turned out was Lorenzo Musetti said in press that at the net, Novak told him, by the way, I'm not going to go to Turin, so congratulations. And now we have a Lorenzo Musetti who has had 1 day of prep heading to Turin. In what sort of form, I don't know. And yes, this is going to be avoided next year. Next year, the points to qualify for the ATP Finals is going to end in Paris, like it should. So we don't have to deal with this sort of last minute rush to try and qualify for the year-end finals. And I have also heard people say that because Novak Djokovic was entered into a tournament, which he was entered into Athens, he cannot technically officially pull out of the year-end finals because you're sort of like, well, but you're in a tournament. How are you pulling out of a tournament? That sort of thing, which I get, but I still think he could have given the ATP a heads up, given Lorenzo Musetti a heads up, so he didn't have to go to Athens and play and not be prepared physically for the year-end finals because, I might be wrong, but I don't think we're going to get the best Lorenzo Musetti at the year-end finals. And shouldn't we get the best player in their best condition at the year-end finals? I know sickness and everything, like we just talked about in the WTA Finals, can be a thing, but we're just going to get a very sort of exhausted Lorenzo Musetti, in my opinion. And I do think this all could have been avoided. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I know you all will. Be nice in the comments though, or you'll be, you know what I mean? I just think this all could have been avoided. Thankfully, we'll have guardrails for it to be avoided next year. But, and I'll let me know what you think, Nick. But this was just not great. And I remember I posted on our socials as well, because I was watching the final between Novak and Lorenzo, because of course everyone's watching it to see if Lorenzo is able to win and then qualify for the year-end finals. And it just wasn't fun to watch. like people keep saying, oh my God, it was such a great match. Like it was one of the best matches we've watched all year. And I was like, it wasn't fun. There was no fun in watching Lorenzo Musetti kill himself. Oh, and he tried so hard. Just, to be a shell of himself going into the ATP Finals. But yeah, what do you think?
Isn't watching players kill themselves part of the sport? Like, I don't actually think that.
It's a torture sport.
There are definitely people out there who think, no, this is about people pushing themselves to their limit, and that's half the fun.
No.
Regardless of context. So, look, it is messy, and Novak Djokovic does things that don't make sense, because after saying these things about sort of the schedule, if that's a sense, I think that because he then goes and plays Shanghai. Like, he goes and plays Shanghai. So, I'm trying to think about what I want to say here, because, like, it was no surprise to me. Like, it wouldn't have surprised me if he was going to try and do Athens and then ATP Finals, because he's stubborn. Or he was going to play Athens and maybe pull out after one match to kind of say, yeah, I did my job and now I'm going to go. Like, he could have done that. And so I was like, he's got to be playing, and he knows that, like, he can't mess the ATP around, really, because he knows which side is better as buttered. He's already aggravated them enough anyway with a lot of other things. So
yeah,
I guess you've just got to go with Novak Djokovic does what he wants. And I still don't. I think if he played one match, or if he lost, if Nuno Borges pulled off a win against him in Athens, he might have gone to Turin and gone, okay, cool, I've got energy, I can do this. I think Novak reaching the final was probably the end of it, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I was not as convinced as you were that he definitely wasn't playing. I thought it was a possibility, but I was never convinced about that, because I've given up trying to predict him. And kind of like that old, like he is the old man of tennis in that way. And you know what old people are like? They're like, yeah, you know what? I've had to conform to the rules for long enough. I'm going to do what I want. I worked really hard for how many years, and I'm going to do what I want now. So that's Novak. So who knows? Maybe he is going to focus on best of three or 1 week events or whatever else. And like, he's going to keep playing and find ways to win and find ways to compete with Alcaraz where he can, because that's ultimately that. And like, that's one of the reasons why I thought he was going to play ATP Finals, because he said he wants to see what he can do against Alcaraz in best of three. That was the perfect tournament for that. He was guaranteed to play one of them. So I think that's where I was going to sit. But of course, the questions will keep coming. And I was like, okay, he's going to struggle getting across. Surely it's not going to be a thing. And then obviously, that Djokovic-Musetti final setup was ridiculous in the sort of stories that we got. But like, I took the fun out of it. I found fun in that whole thing, to be honest. I thought it was kind of funny, and I'm here to I'm here for it. I guess we'll just have to see. Like, it's a shame Djokovic isn't part of the ATP Finals. I think it was an event that was interesting. It would have been more interesting with him in it, but oh well, it probably wasn't going to massively change the narrative of the overall tournament. The whole Lorenzo Musetti potentially not being at his best is a shame. I will agree with you there. Don't like that we've ended up in that scenario.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So we have basically our top 8 now. Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, Alexander Zverev, Taylor Fritz, Ben Shelton, Felix Auger-Aliassime, Alex de Minaur, and Lorenzo Musetti. That's our top 8 in the singles. And I think it's right now seeming basically like the Alcaraz story. I think the ATP Finals is just hinged on that right now. There are 2 things going. I think one is that they're both fighting for the year-end final spot. Alcaraz needs to win 3 matches in order to secure his spot. And basically Sinner, no matter what Sinner does, he basically needs he needs Alcaraz not to do well. So he's kind of dependent on how Alcaraz does for the year-end final. So that's definitely one thing. And, I saw your note here about the trophy, but the ATP is really, really leaning into.
Yep.
this rivalry. They are, if you haven't seen the photo, I'll post it, but it's it's the typical sort of like each player has one hand on the trophy and they're trying to pull it apart. They are really just sort of like
But they've got these really
milking.
stupid grins on their faces. Like, they know it's silly, but they're kind of leaning into it.
Yeah. They're going full ham on the synchronized thing. And you know what? It's actually kind of funny because what happened also is they had this whole practice session together. And, tennis has always been like this, where, there are these sort of intense rivalries. And it's not for every rivalry. Some players do just absolutely hate their rivals and they don't, are not friends with them and things. But tennis does tend to have these special rivalries. We've seen it with Nadal, where there's a friendship there as well as being sort of you're competing for the same things.
Yeah. Also, by the way, tennis hasn't had a rivalry where the players have hated each other in the men's game since the 80s.
True.
Since the 80s, people forget this, but it's probably because people who grew up with the 80s, everyone was kind of respectful of each other in the 90s, and definitely with Nadal and Fedalovic, they were all really, really respectful. So why would that trend be any different? Women's game may be a little bit different, depending on who you ask.
A bit different.
A little bit different in the past, not so much at the moment, but there were definitely points in the 2000s, maybe not before that as much as publicly, but it got bitchy at times. Let's be honest. But it's not like that now, and actually tennis is a sport where that's the minority of cases now. So maybe we just need to get rid of this narrative that it's not really going to happen again. It's going to take a lot to have a rivalry. The only way there's only going to be a minority of players that you could create this kind of rivalries again. So I think let's just focus on the facts that regardless of whether you like the other guy on court or not, you're still going to try and beat him. And you're still when the match starts, when the umpire says ready, play, you're professionals. You're trying to win. And nothing's going to stop that. And you accept that when the umpire calls game, set, and match, and you can switch that off.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, tell that to Bublik, but.
Yeah, the only way we're going to get they hate each other rivalry is if the top of the game was Bublik and Kyrgios.
Yeah.
Which somebody
then it would be for sure. Yeah. But so it's been great. If you don't know, by the way, Carlos and Yannick are going to be playing their very first EXO together before the Australian Open in Korea. So that should be really interesting because we just never have seen them kind of solo EXO together. So I think this should be actually a very interesting dynamic to see how they do that together. I like this top 8. It's for me, I think this is one of the first times where, and here's the thing, Novak didn't play last year either. So you could have said, oh, well, last year was kind of like the beginning. Oh, it's like the new wave or whatever. But the mix of players like Ben Shelton, FAA, there's this sort of like fresh energy, I think, into the mix. And I really am excited for this. Even Lorenzo Musetti, and that's why I really wish he is in good condition and form, because Lorenzo Musetti, when he's playing well, is such a beautiful player. And we've seen this year that he's not only that sort of gorgeous player on the natural surfaces, he's improved his game so much on the hard courts. So I like this group of top 8. I think it's really nice that they've come together like this. You know what's also great as well? We have an excellent group of doubles players. I don't know about you, but I made a video of kind of like running down. I hadn't even thought about it. I was just like, oh, let me just do a video about like all the doubles teams that are in the mix. And when I was done, I thought, wow, this is actually a fabulous group of doubles players that all have these great stories. And if you haven't seen that reel, I'll link it. And if you don't know much about the doubles players and you don't really follow them, I really do encourage you to just go watch that reel. It's very quick. It's like 2 minutes long, and it gives you a sense of who these doubles players are, what their accomplishments have been this year, and why you should watch them. for this end of year finals. I think they're all worthy of their spot, and please watch more doubles. It's really fun. You can do it.
Yeah. And by the way, that reel was brilliant because I got me hyped for the doubles, and I was already kind of hyped, but it kind of gives you a sense of the story and like how close in performance these teams are with each other.
Yeah.
The possible exceptions being Harrison and King, because they've only had a couple of deep runs in tournaments this year, but they've made up a lot of points in kind of the 500 level and things like that. So I think they obviously made the Roland Garros semis, they made the Indian Wells semis. I think they are the real wild cards in the mix. They're the ground pass entry.
They're the ground pass entry, and I don't want to break anyone's bubble, and I haven't talked to them yet. You know, we did promise that they would hopefully come on this pod, and at this point, I think it definitely will be obviously after the tournament, but I think I plugged Harry Hiliervara's blog that he writes, that I do read. And in the last post he made, he mentioned that this might be the last tournament that Harris and King play together.
Wow.
Yeah. They might be one of the doubles teams that are splitting this year.
I wonder why they're doing that, because it seems to be working, but maybe they've caught attention of other people.
That's the thing. So, you know, maybe we should just have like a doubles kind of like, maybe we get like Will Buchik on and just talk about doubles kind of poaching, like partner poaching. And because that's really, guys, what happens. It's like, you know, you catch the eye of someone else and they think, oh, wow, that might be a really great partner for me. And, you know, it's how Taylor Townsend and Katrina Siniakova got together, because Taylor Townsend was supposed to be playing with Beatrice Haddad-Mayer. And then she got a call from Katrina Siniakova and she was like, bye, Beatrice Haddad-Mayer. Yeah, the GOAT has called me.
Storm Hunter's back on the market. Storm Hunter's back. So that's going to shake some things up.
Yeah, totally. It can get really fun and spicy in the doubles world, guys.
Yeah, we definitely see that pretty well.
Yeah, that would be fun, actually. Great. So that was your ATP Finals sort of mini preview. The tournament's already happening. Some results that have come out of today alone. Carlos Alcaraz won his very first match that he played today. By the way, which this was the craziest stat that I did not realize. But do you know that Carlos Alcaraz has not ever won his very first round robin match at the year-end finals? And this was the first time.
Interesting.
He played against Alex de Minaur and he won in straight sets. Granollers and Zeballos, who, as I talked about in that video, they were the doubles team that just had never won a Grand Slam, and they won 2 this year. They beat the defending champions of the ATP Finals, Kravitz and Puitz. They beat them today. That went to a deciding set tiebreak. And currently on court right now are Cash and Glasspool and Bolelli Vavasori, the best dressed doubles team against the British sensations. By the way, British doubles is like A++.
I thought you were going to make a comment about the British dress sense there, Anastasia. I'm like, I should be offended, but you're not wrong.
I would never.
You can't compete with the Italians in their Gucci suits.
Can't compete, no. Exactly. They're Gucci. Bolelli and Vavasori are dressed by Emporio Armani. Like, you really can't just compete with that. It's okay. Okay. Last bit of business, and we'll keep this quick because this is a 2-hour-long episode officially, I think. I think this might be, we're getting there. We're at the 1.5-hour mark, but, you know, it's been great. This is what the WTA... No, this is a full episode. No, this is the end of the year, so everything's a full episode now. But a couple of things came up that I just wanted to talk about because I think, especially when you're getting into the sport, and also what I think is happening is the tours, the ATP and the WTA, they're trying to attract more casual fans. Guess what? They're trying to do what we do. Mm-hmm. They're trying to do what we do. And a couple of things have come up this week that I think are very interesting. And I thought, you know, if you haven't heard of it, that you might want to know. First things first, the ATP has signed up with Spotify for a new kind of behind the scenes video, like episodic programming. Don't know what that means. They said they're good. The very first sort of tournament that they're going to show is the ATP Finals. So I'm assuming like at the end of the ATP Finals, we're going to see some videos drop that are from behind the scenes. So I find it very interesting they're doing it. Spotify has been sort of like going into video. It's not just all about music and podcasts and stuff like that. Like, for example, if you listen to our podcast on Spotify, you can actually watch the video version of it there. So they've announced a partnership with Spotify that was announced last week. And little birdies have told me that the WTA are actually, they have the same deal with Spotify, and the ATP just jumped the gun and announced theirs first, but the WTA is going to be also announcing very soon their partnership with Spotify as well. Do you have Spotify, Nick? Do you use Spotify? Oh, there you go. So it's going to be interesting to see what they put out there. I'm looking forward to it. And then another thing I'm going to mention is an article that I will link. It was a piece done by Hardcourt. It was a little bit of a response to Taylor Fritz and Morgan Riddle. They were in Glamour magazine. Was it Glamour or GQ? Maybe it was GQ actually. Now I'm like doubting myself, but I think it was in GQ. Okay. So it was an article that was featured in GQ where Morgan Riddle and Taylor Fritz actually talked about the issues that they have kind of posting their behind the scenes videos from the tournament and how hard it is. It's a very interesting read. I'll link it so they can just like check it out, because you would think Taylor Fritz, top 4 in the world, he should have no issues posting his own videos. But I think a lot of players have talked about kind of like the restrictions that they have due to media rights and the tours saying they can't do certain things, etc., which is a bummer because I think Morgan Riddle specifically has brought a lot of new fans into the sport because they just love watching her behind the scenes vlogs. So our friend Jessica Schiffer, who has a Substack called Hardcourt, she's been on the podcast before. She wrote an article in response to that. And she interviewed me for it, just talking about how ground pass, like how we sort of move in the space of the tennis media world. And I don't think it's something it's not something that we talk about a lot on this podcast. If you follow our Substack when I'm on site and you go through the days that I'm on site, I think I talk about it more there when I talk about sort of like the behind the scenes of what it's like covering a tournament, because that's what our Substack on site is for, where it's like what it's like being on site covering a tournament, but also giving you tips and tricks about attending the tournament and where to sit and all that stuff. So I definitely talk about it more there. But yeah, it's not the easiest thing to cover the tennis tour, getting credentialed to go into tournaments and having to explain that you are a podcast and then explaining what a podcast is and all of that stuff. It's definitely not the easiest thing. And it was interesting kind of talking about it to Jessica, because we don't really talk about that on the podcast here. But yeah, it was a fun little conversation. It got featured in The Athletic, which was also fun. And it's more sort of like, I guess, eyeballs for ground pass. So if you came to us from one of those article places, welcome. We talk about tennis here.
Yes, we do. We don't necessarily talk about all the other stuff that's around it, but I think, we were talking about before, like this article kind of highlights, I think, where tennis kind of is as a moment as a sport and doesn't seem to understand that there is a new media, like the new media stuff that's on YouTube, like podcasts and YouTubers and kind of the independent media creators that, we know we're small. We know we're not necessarily trying to compete with the big guys, but we want to have our own voice and have our own space and build communities, which is what we love doing here on Ground Pass. But I think it's interesting that other sports have engaged with this in a different way and not welcomed them all in. They've been rightfully selective, but certainly had opportunities to kind of, but certainly kind of welcome them all, kind of sharing of highlights and moments and celebrations and interacting with their athletes in that way a bit more. Whereas tennis, ironically, for such a sport that's so, and maybe that's where it's come from, like tennis as a sport is so segmented. in terms of there's so many different stakeholders running the sport. It's not one organisation that runs tennis, and we need to remember this. And I'm wondering whether, like, thinking about this as I'm speaking now, this is a fallout with their fight with each other. That they are trying to keep control of what they have, this is why maybe some of their attitude towards content is the same, but it's certainly interesting for a sport that's sort of so decentralized that trying to keep centralized control of content is so prevalent on their minds. But we don't work behind the scenes, so we don't know that for sure. But it's an interesting kind of attitude towards it. It doesn't affect us too much, to be honest, because we're not necessarily interested in bringing you highlights or moments. We want to tell you what it's like to visit tournaments, so we'll show you what we can, and we'll talk to you all about the stories as they're happening. But we're kind of assuming that you're not behind the scenes, and you just want people to talk about what we can see with on the TV or at the tournament, and that suits us just fine with what we can get.
Yeah, and that's actually been the biggest thing. I love that you say that, Nick, because it's sort of like, you know, we've kind of found our own little world in our ground pass, and we talk to people who are new to the sport and try to explain, we're not trying to do highlight reels, and that it's just not what we do. But it definitely is interesting watching the sport develop around us in a way. And I think we're in a bit of an inflection point, I think, with the sport and them. I think something that we didn't talk about here as well as ATP's new sort of collaboration with TikTok. It's like they're trying to get into these more sort of casual viewer worlds, and it's interesting to see how they kind of thrive in those spaces or not, or what happens. But yeah.
Okay, I know we've already got a long podcast going, but like this is something I actually want to ask you about. So let's do it. How do you find these kind of official behind the scenes shows, like in general, like as a thing? Because here's what I think. I think a lot of the reason why when Morgan does her thing, Morgan Riddle is the perfect example, because she said this kind of thing before with like struggling to create content and things like that. And like she's known as the person who gives you the insight. Or with What the Vlog with Daria Kasatkina and her partner, whose name has completely gone out my head right now, Anastasia Zabalenko, I think.
Yeah. I think it's Natasha. Yeah.
And she, or like others that do this sort of thing. I think there's a couple of other people. Like I'm really enjoying watching Ellie Mae Jelly on Instagram with her behind the scenes that she's doing because she's the girlfriend of an Australian doubles player who's just broken top 100, James something. I think what I like about those is they're genuine. They seem genuine, and that they are kind of on our level with people. Whereas a lot of the in-house content feels very polished and very professional, and there's still like guidelines about what we can and can't show, and we're kind of a lot more tiptoeing around things. It's not the Drive to Survive, Breakpoint style of content that we would have got from Netflix, say.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe where it's interesting that like that. So I would love to see more kind of the other kind of content creators I'm talking about, the ones who are kind of like, yeah, I'm excited to be here and this is what's going on and sharing about it, than necessarily another official platform of interviews, which I feel like are kind of the same as the content if we were to watch the official show on TV. And I'm looking for something different. And I was going to ask you, do you have a similar perspective?
Yeah, I totally do. I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head as to why we like Morgan's content and, Daria Kasatkina's content. And it's because it's it's honest. It seems more personal. It seems more sort of like from their point of view. And what at least I've seen from the tours, it seems a little too, for lack of a better word, corporate.
Polished.
It seems, yes. Like it seems too sort of like, staged. Like, it doesn't seem as sort of like free flowing and maybe just sort of like happened upon. It was sort of like, no. Let's put a whole thing together. And then, this is the behind the scenes. I just haven't, I've seen recently, what I have seen actually, and I don't know if you've seen these, but the WTA have been doing these sort of vlogs where they'll pick a player at a tournament and then just follow them for the day. Those have been slightly more interesting, but again, there's a there's a part of it that just seems sort of, scheduled and like, hey, we are going to go vlogging today. And I don't necessarily think the organizations should be the ones showing us the behind the scenes a lot of the time. Because I don't know if it's not from, unless they're partnering with a player. Like, for example, if they went to sort of Morgan, and Taylor Fritz and said, hey, we want to follow you guys around, let's do it. Sure. But I feel like there's just this lack of personal feeling with what the tours put out. Like, I don't feel it's like originating from the player or from the sport per se. It's almost sort of like too phony in my eyes. At least that's how I see it. And we really haven't even seen that much of behind the scenes that's as loose as maybe the WTA vlogs that I've been seeing. So it'll be interesting to see what this new ATP Spotify finals thing turns out to be. That would be fun. That would be interesting to see. Okay, the last bit of newsy thing before we kind of wrap it all up is Battle of the Sexes is back, Nick. Back.
I forgot we had to talk about this. Like, I didn't see it on the rundown. So I was like, I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, we do need to talk about it. I thought we would. I thought this week we'd have to, and then I completely forgot about it.
I forgot to put it on the rundown, and then you said Nick Kyrgios, and I was like,
yeah, okay. So it's my fault. I've ended up creating the change of events that have meant that I'm now caught out. So yeah, no, I'm going to say this. This is probably the closest we're going to get to recreating that thing, that moment in what the original Battle of the Sexes was from the 1970s. In that you've got a player who's definitely past his best, taking on the best women's player in the world. But he had some success. It's not the level of Bobby Riggs when he took on Billie Jean King, which I think I'm just going to do context. So for those who are new to tennis, the most watched tennis match history is not an official match. It was an exhibition match called the Battle of the Sexes in 1973 between Billie Jean King, who at that time was the world number one, or one of the most, and was in the middle of founding the WTA and kind of has always been very much a women's rights advocate and women's sports advocate. And she was playing Bobby Riggs, who had won Wimbledon in 1939, 34 years prior. So again, if you were to do this now, it would be whoever won Wimbledon in 1992. Andre Agassi. It would be Andre Agassi playing Aryna Sabalenka, which I feel would be a lot more good-natured in that scenario.
Yeah. They actually did an exhibition together in Hong Kong during the Asian Swing, but it was for pickleball.
Moving on. I'd rather watch this Battle of the Sexes, to be honest. So it was that equivalent, and that kind of got a lot of attention because Bobby Riggs was a PR man and he knew how to hype the whole thing up and make it an event. And so, like, there was a lot of, like, fanfare and there was a lot of, like, kind of WWE style stuff around it. Riggs had beaten Margaret Court in a similar sort of setup before that, who was kind of Billie Jean King's rival. And so Billie Jean King played him and won in straight sets in a best-of-5 match. And it was equal. They didn't necessarily change any dimensions of the court to make it even or anything like that. There have been similar attempts since, but they've never quite got the same amount of traction. I think Jimmy Connors once played Martina Navratilova back in the 90s. There have been similar sort of exhibition ideas, but this is one where, like, Kyrgios has always got some high profile to him because he's always on highlight reels. He's always outspoken. He got to a Wimbledon final, close enough, I guess, 4 years ago. 3 years ago. Sorry. What year were we in? 2020. Is it 2026 yet?
No.
Okay. Moving on. So that's where we've got to. I think it's not going to be the same though, because he has the same sort of setup of past prime. Kyrgios hasn't played in almost a year. He's clearly almost done with his career because he can't play with the wrist or save his body in, particularly the wrist at the moment. And Sabalenka is the best in the world, but they've shrunk the court dimensions on Sabalenka's side of the court by 9% because apparently that is the difference in sort of speed in movement between men and women. My argument would be Kyrgios was never a Greek mover anyway. You don't need to help him out there.
Yep.
I think he's going to struggle anyway to try and sort of get rid of the quotes differences, but it's not going to be the same as that. And they're sort of like they're only allowed one serve at a time because Kyrgios is known to have one of the biggest serves. It is a stunt. There is no doubt about it. It is not going to ever be that kind. It's not going to prove anything decisive of sort of whether female athletes can compete directly with male athletes in tennis now because of the things they've done with it, because of who's involved. Look at you, Mr. Kyrgios. If you want to watch it and enjoy it because it's got the certain names involved, do it. Just enjoy it for fun. If you're trying to make a point out of it, don't bother because you're not going to get anywhere no matter what side you're on. So that's where I would kind of set my stone down. I'm not going to watch it because it's a Mickey Mouse match. No offense to Disney intended in that phrase. Please don't come after us. We do, but I have no objection if you decide to watch it. But yeah, if you're going to try and use a conversation to start about women's sports over it, this was not the match to choose.
No. Nick, this is why we are podcast hosts together, because we get it. But yeah, I remember when this first came up, I was like, all right, sure. Like, I was like, it's just another exhibition. There are different kinds. At the end of the year, these sort of things pop up all the time. I thought it was interesting that they were picking the whole battle of the sexes kind of like theme to go with. But in no way, shape, or form did I think that this was some sort of like, oh, it's supposed to be the next battle of the sexes. And personally, I don't think that's what they were going for. I think it was just sort of like it's in Dubai. It's kind of like a fun little exhibition. My whole thing was, I hope they have a backup because God knows Kyrgios doesn't really show up to these matches. He somehow turns to, he'll pull out, like he literally has pulled out of every single tournament this year. Exactly. He'll probably show up if you pay him, and he is getting paid for this. This is an exhibition. So he probably will show up. But in terms of his tennis, I was like, he's pulled out of most tournaments this year, except for the doubles in the City Open was the one that he did manage to like play one match in. So I wasn't really taking it seriously. It's basically the reaction to this battle of the sexes that I found so fascinating because everyone's taking it so seriously. And it's sort of like, oh my goodness, it's the battle. Like, this is such an indictment. Like, people are gonna, I think someone posted something like this is turning back the clock or, something to that effect of like women's right. I was like, it's an exhibition match in Dubai. I think we're good.
This is my point, right? Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, it wasn't meant to be the next thing. It wasn't meant to be the true success of that 1973 match. It's the audience that's turned it into this. It's the media that's turned it into this, not the organisers. But I think it tells us two things. One, it tells us a lot about, I think a lot of this is being stirred by the fan base of a certain player.
Yeah. I get that.
Leave it there. And I will also say that the media knows how big that Battle of the Sexes match got in 73. Like, as I still said, it is still the most watched tennis match ever, as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong. So obviously they've got to get on board with it because if you get a true successor to it, people are going to watch it. They're going to eyeball it. They want those eyeballs. So we want those eyeballs. We're tennis fans. So I think that's what they're kind of, could it be that? Can we finally get this like moment again? I think the world's moved on. I don't think you're ever going to truly recreate it, to be honest. So, and I'm not entirely sure they need to. The point was made back then, and maybe it will get made again. And unless someone could give me a convincing reason why it needs to be made again, then don't bother, just have fun with it. And like, I don't have a problem with the Battle of the Sexes matches as the mini version, as like one-off fun things. I think it's fun to mix and showcase women's and men's sports side by side, which is what these kind of exhibitions should be now, as kind of promoting these as status, not trying to prove a point as whether women's sport should be there or not. Like, it's there. It's like, this is about celebrating where we are now. Okay, I will admit there's some things that could be better. But broadly speaking, it's got good taste, especially within tennis. So let's maybe just, maybe go with what the intention was from the organisers and just say, this is fun. Let's celebrate the best of the men's and the women's side by side.
Yeah. I think, where I'll end this on is that it kind of goes back to our episode on exhibitions, and there is an element of people losing sight of just fun. Not everything has to have a deeper meaning. Sometimes things can just be for fun. Like when you go to an amusement park, it's just for fun. When you have your favorite meal, it's just for fun. Not everything has to have some sort of deeper meaning. And I think it is actually almost insulting for you to take something like this and say people are going to, take some sort of deeper meaning from it. Like, why would you even put that into the atmosphere? It's so ridiculous. I was like, this is so ridiculous. Why are people getting upset over a tiny exhibition, that frankly might not really happen? But to your point, I'm sure there's a lot of money involved. Everyone will show up, to at least hit a ball back and forth. But yeah, so, from ground pass to you, if you want to watch a fun little exhibition and you're excited about those certain players, go right ahead. If you don't want to, don't do it. I just would not put any other sort of meaning to this Battle of the Sexes exhibition. It's just an exhibition. That's all. Okay, Nick, we did it. Another great episode. What's going on this week? What's happening? What's going
it's the
on?
ATP Finals next.
That's it?
Yeah, it's just the ATP Finals. The women's season is done because Billie Jean King Cup is not even after the WTA Finals anymore. So yeah, women's tennis is on the main tour is done. There's probably still going to be challenges and ITFs and things like that going on, but all the focus is going to be ATP Finals this week and whether we're going to get Alcaraz again in the final. Pretty much what it's going to be all about. But yeah, is this the longest episode we've ever done?
In recent times, yes, because we are at 1 hour, 55 minutes. So in recent times, this has been the longest episode we've done. But I have to say, the WTA Finals deserved it. Talking about all those players, it's the end of their season. And I think we really deserved, that part meant a lot. And hey, we have chapters. You can jump around. You can listen to what you want to listen to, come back and listen again. That's what chapters are for.
It was fun, but that was a lot of work. I need a vacation.
Soon, Nick, soon. But the tennis season is too long. So we will be back again next week. Next week might actually be a little different. It'll either be a mini pod. Nick, unfortunately, cannot be here next week. So
because I'm on vacation.
Because, he really actually did decide. That was actually a hint. He was like, I'm gone. So it'll either just be me with a mini pod or I might find a guest to join me. We will see. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us for another gorgeous little episode. Hopefully we'll see you guys again next week. If you're listening to this on a podcast player of your choice, please leave us a review. Give us 5 stars if we deserve it. I hope we have. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And again, we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.